Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And, well, if you watched my last video, I talked in the first part of that last video about the Game Jam, the OSR Game Jam that is happening on itch.io, that was organized by Taylor Lane, who some of you will by now be pretty familiar with, based on their appearance on the Dolly Pop live stream and inappropriate characters, and the smear video done against them and us by a guy that we have now come to know as Potato John. Anyways, the premise of the OSR Game Jam is just that it's a place where people who want to be better known as game designers, whether they're starting out or they've been at it for a while, can go on there, and they can end up making supplements for existing OSR games, right? Like the Invisible College, for example. And some of the better known OSR game designers have publicly promoted this and said you can use our games to do this. And just one thing first, before I get onto the main topic, is that I want to clarify, because some people maybe had a bit of misunderstanding about this, right? The people who make these supplements are the ones who profit from it, right? Like when I say that, people have my permission to use Lion and Dragon or Arrows of Indra or the Invisible College or Star Adventure to make a supplement for the OSR Game Jam, I'm not going to make any money from that necessarily. All it does is, goodwill and good publicity for me. But the product itself will then be on sale on itch.io. And as far as I know, apart from, I'm guessing, itch.io itself, the only people who profit from it are the people who made that supplement, right? Now, of course, if some publisher of one of these games, mine or somebody else's publisher, decide that the supplement is cool, maybe they'll want to host that same supplement for sale on Drivethru or on wherever they sell their products, and make a deal with the person who made it, right? But it's not something, because some people thought maybe it's like, they're only working for exposure, and it's money that goes to us or to the person organizing or something. That's not the case, right? Like, this is entirely about smaller OSR creators having a chance to get more of a name for themselves by making supplements for popular OSR games, right? So that's the premise of it, And, it should come as no surprise to anyone that apparently there's a lot of the Wokist ttrpg people on itch, including the people who claim to be like the Woke-OSR, who are absolutely furious about this. They're just so mad at this whole situation, and it's funny to watch, because they've gone and they've said, well, I've seen cases where they've said that this is just some kind of attack on them by Taylor Lane, right? Or that Taylor Lane, some of them have implied that Taylor Lane isn't, because Taylor Lane, for those of you who haven't already heard, identifies as, let me see if I've got this right, as queer and agendered, I believe is their term, and they use the they them pronouns, right? And so to the SJWs, Taylor Lane getting involved with the real OSR, right? The regular OSR is an incredible betrayal, which I've kind of already covered that bit of it in previous videos, because their narrative is that the regular OSR is just composed of cis-het white males who would brutally attack and harass and reject anyone who wasn't a cis-het white male, and they're absolutely furious that someone like Taylor Lane is making a name for themselves in the regular OSR. Why? Not because they're any of those identities, but rather because they're making kind of cool OSR products, right? Like Taylor Lane has a batch of products that they've already made and others that are coming out now, and they're very creative sort of indie OSR stuff that's really useful in certain circumstances. You know, like the last one that I remember they came out with was one that like was a mechanic, a sub-mechanic you can use in an OSR game to regulate, and you know, to give a system to having political revolutions happening in the game world. You know, so that's very interesting. And it's not ideological at all. It's just like it measures the level of, you know, discontent versus control and fear and things like that. That if they reach a certain point, have a risk of causing some kind of great upheaval, and then, you know, factions developing or things like that, right? So it lets you measure that stuff. That's pretty cool. I think it's cool. Anyways, it's the sort of thing that I could see myself potentially using in some of my medieval authentic games, for example. So, you know, people have, you know, most people have ended up liking Taylor because they're always talking about RPGs, you know, they're promoting stuff that is, you know, actually about playing the game. But, you know, to the Wokists, that's absolutely horrific, apparently. And of course, it got much worse with the fact that the OSR game designers have endorsed this project, right? So the fact that I endorsed it, the fact that Venger endorsed it, I believe Game Jam has endorsed it. The only one I'm not sure has endorsed it yet is James Raggi, and I kind of wish he would, because I bet he'd like to see like really creative, you know, people doing some really creative stuff using the Lamentations rules. Because I mean, like, if there's anyone that could potentially, you know, because he's somebody who publishes other people's work. So Jim, if you happen to watch this, check out the itch.io OSR Game Jam, because there's a bunch of people who look like they're going to be making some very creative supplements. And if you jump in right now, because it's not too late, it's already, the project itself is already started, but it runs the whole month. And so you can pop in at any moment. You can join still. I think there's like almost 70 people who have joined the Game Jam, and that means that they're planning to release a supplement for the Game Jam. And but any of you watching, if any of you are, you know, people who want to try your hand at producing a supplement, even if it's a short supplement, and would like to do it for an existing OSR game, this is your great opportunity, right? So you can jump in, and, you know, as long as you get a product done by the end of the month, then you're golden. You can do it right now. You can go in there right now. And you'd think that Jim Raggi, of all people, would be looking at that like a talent pool of people he could potentially hire to write LOTFP stuff. Just look for all the, you know, the weirdest stuff that fits his particular style of weird fantasy, you know, and he's got a ready-made pool of potential new authors for him to publish. So I really hope, if any of you are in speaking terms with Jim Raggi, then be sure to let him know about this, and see if he doesn't want to like publicly say, yeah, I'd like people to try their hand at making an LOTFP supplement in the Game Jam, you know. In any case, those of us who have endorsed it are, you know, obviously the arch nemesis of the SJWs. And so it's very funny that they've then gone on and you know, tried to claim that because of this, it's like proof that Taylor Lane is all the things that they lie about us about, right? Like, they make up all this bullshit about us. You know, like they call Grim Jim, and those of you who watch the older issues of Inappropriate Characters, or who watch Grim Jim's YouTube channel, and I would say check it out. Sometimes he makes interesting videos, you know. You would know that Grim Jim is like the furthest thing from a fascist, right? I mean, unless you consider his views on lockdown to be kind of fascistic, right? Because he's a guy that was anti-Brexit. He's you know, kind of a Labour socialist, though maybe not a Corbynite. I don't want to misrepresent him, but, you know, he's a very left-wing guy, right? And he's, you know, totally cool about sexuality, you know, and he's got no, you know, he's got no issues with anyone, right? Except that he's a COVID hysteric, right? But that's pretty much the only thing where you can, like, say, and you know, of course, most of the SJWs are too. So like, that's not what they're talking about, and yet instead they're trying to present him as though he was, you know, like he was one of the people in that video that claimed that we're all, you know, evil alt-right fascists, you know. So it's just ridiculous, you know. And I'm a classical liberal first and foremost, and I'm a social libertarian. Benjer's, ironically, you know, kind of the most right wing of us, except he used to be a Hillary voter. You know, so like, none of these are the mark of people who would be fascists, you know. And they tried to claim that, you know, Taylor is like a national socialist. Well, Taylor is, I'm pretty sure that Taylor's gender identity, their sexuality, and also the fact that Taylor is Jewish would pretty much discount that from, you know, getting the membership, even if they wanted to be part of that particular political ideology. And I'm pretty damn sure that they don't, you know. So it's just absurd what they're doing. But I find it very funny in particular that they have this double discourse, right? Because I've been sent people, you know, tweets that have been put out by the SJWs. Most of them have me blocked, but I have a ton of people that send me spicy tweets that are either about me or just spicy tweets in general by the D&D SJWs. And if you happen upon any, feel free to send them my way, because I can always do with more material, right? And they have, like, at the same time, they were doing this kind of double discourse, right? Where they were saying, on the one hand, that, you know, well, the RPG pundit, he's not important, he never sells anything, you know, and he's just so desperate. Look at him trying to get people to publish supplements for the games that nobody likes, right? And you know, ignoring the multiple bestsellers that I've gotten, the fact that I make a full-time living off RPGs. But then on the other hand, they're at the very same time, they're saying, well, Taylor Lane is just a sellout who wants the huge dollars that are available from the fascist OSR, you know. So like, that on the one hand, I'm not selling anything, but on the other hand, Taylor Lane is desperate to be making the money I'm making, right? So this is a very, you know, they've got to figure out what their real, you know, they got to pick one lane, right? In that situation, you know, and it's like the same people saying it, so it's just ridiculous. And really, you know, getting to the core of why I think, besides the fact that it's Taylor Lane, and besides all the fact of what, you know, what that means, the threat it means to them, because again, if Taylor Lane can make supplements for the OSR, for the regular OSR, that regular OSR gamers like, and that end up buying, and that seems to be the case, right? Then that means that any other person that SJWs claimed could never make those types of games and sell them in the regular OSR can. And of course, they know that those games do sell, and they have a large niche of people, a large community. You know, I hate that word, right? But a large group of people, a social group of OSR gamers who look for product that is actually good, that's actually useful, that's focused on the game, right? But it can be weird, it can be different. There's lots of people that love really alternative stuff, right? Like, you know, Yoon Suin, you know, to give one example, that will end up, you know, that if they make those, they will end up being successful in the OSR. And that the OSR just, it's not that they're going to be gatekeepers that will try to drive out women or BIPOC, whatever that means, or, you know, LGBT people from the hobby. It means that they just don't care about those things, right? We only care that you game. That's the only thing we care about. You know, that you're an actual gamer that's designing actual game material, and that material can have lots of weird and wonderful things, you know, and it can even have, you know, for an example, the gold and silver bestseller Arrows of Indra. And I say gold and silver because the print and PDF edition are on two different Drivethru pages for some reason, and that's where they're at in terms of bestsellers on Drivethru, to say nothing of Amazon and Lightning Source. That you know, that product that was one of my very first products, and it's been around forever, is Bestseller, and it features a culture with a third gender in it, and no one cares, and it's a setting that doesn't have any white people in it, and that it's a completely honest and accurate depiction of a historical non-white society, and no one cares. Everybody who buys it is buying it because it's a really cool game that's founded on epic Indian myth, which is a very cool genre, so that's what OSR gamers want. So there's that issue, and because that means that if Taylor is, if people start realizing that about Taylor, some of the other people that maybe are not totally happy with this tiny cabal of SJWs controlling their lives, but that are not supportive. Like the Game Jam is an example of the supportiveness of established creators in the OSR, right? In the OSR, we don't see it as a limited pie. We want everyone to make stuff, and we're gonna support and endorse stuff. And I don't need to like force other people to promote or retweet my stuff, and then maybe someday I'll like help them. But first they have to prove themselves to me, which is apparently what happens on the other side. I'll be very happy that if I see some product, someone sends me a review copy of a game that I've never even heard of. It's an OSR product that they just made or something, and I think it's cool. I'm going to say it's cool, and I'm going to share it. And because anything I think is cool, I'm going to promote. And I'm not scared that that's going to somehow take away from some kind of power that I have, because for them, it runs the risk that the more people that become popular in their little circle, that are like, the influencers in their little circle, then the less social power any of the specific people have, and they don't want that. They want a controlled social power structure over there. Here we have no social power structure, right? There's no king or pope of the OSR. There's lots of people in the OSR that don't even like me, right? And I guess I'm a pretty big influencer in the OSR, but I don't get to make a decree that then everybody else is going to follow, right? And I can't even make a decree that like Venture Satanis is going to follow. So what's the odds of anybody else doing that, right? So it's a totally different environment, right? But besides that, there's one other thing. And I think this is the main issue for them now, that has like gotten them into, a furor of anger and rage, which is that this is happening on itch.io. Right, and itch.io is this indie RPG website that has been the place where they put their RPG products, right? The ones that they strictly control, the ones that they decide who promotes, and that it's got this mark of being, this is the place, a lot of people think of it, when you think of itch.io, you think that, oh, well, that's like for the weirdo indie games or for the leftist RPGs, and like, normal people post stuff on Drivethru, right? But in this case, I think Taylor has demonstrated some of the utility of itch.io and how it can be a useful selling place for OSR, for regular OSR products. And I think they feel very, very threatened about that, because suddenly there's going to be a bunch of regular OSR people on itch.io, and then suddenly people who go to shop at itch.io might accidentally run into regular games written by people that are supposed to be on the verboten list of the Wokists, and might discover that those regular games are not in any way what they were told it was about, right? They're just like cool games, and they're not, in fact, like, like John Potato's video tried to imply that there's some kind of like alt-right propaganda or something like that. In fact, they're almost entirely apolitical, almost all of them, right? Like I've said before, the Invisible College is the most political game that I've ever made, and if it promotes any single political ideology, it's like 17th century, founding father / French Revolution type modernist liberalism, and that's it. So, and it's not about modern politics, it's about, the spiritual politics of different esoteric groups. So it's it's still not a political game in the sense of trying to enforce a political message on the people playing it, you know? So yeah, I mean, it's something where they're threatened because a place they had a monopoly over suddenly has a, you know, it's like, instead of them getting to attack us on our territory, suddenly we're in their territory. And that's I think, one of the best reasons to check out the itch.io OSR Game Jam. Okay, so I guess that's everything for today. If you like this, well, I'll try to put a link to the Game Jam again on this video. Again, I'm not making any money off this, at least. No, I mean, I'm definitely not making any money off this because I'm not even a publisher, right? So if let's say Spectre Press, who did the Old School Companion 2, if somebody does a supplement for Lion and Dragon, and you know, either Dom or Spectre Press publishes it, I'm pretty sure I don't get any of that money, right? Like, it's a supplement. I didn't write it. I'm not the publisher. So this is something that I'm saying with zero personal commercial interest, other than the fact that, you know, it's kind of, you know, you could argue, well, it's good publicity. All right, it's good publicity, but it's also something I think is cool. And that's the real reason I'm talking about it, right? So check out that link for the OSR Game Jam below, and check out the link for all my other games. If you want to support me and you want to keep seeing videos like this and my reviews and my videos on stuff in you know, gaming theory or the gaming world or any of that sort of stuff, then, I mean, you can support me on my Patreon page. But, you know, SJWs always try to claim that somehow I'm not successful because I have a very small number of Patreons. And they miss the fact that I always say in my videos, you know, you do that if you don't want to buy any of my books or you've already bought all my books, right? Because I think a much better way for you and me to support, for both of us, for you to support me, is if you get my books, right? So you can check out books like The Invisible College, Dark Albion, The Old School Companion 2. That's the newest one, and it's selling really, really well. It's 360 pages with 26 medieval authentic OSR adventures that you can use in pretty much any OSR system, and a wide variety of adventures, but all of them based on medieval myth, folklore, or history. So check that one out. Check out Star Adventure, and check out, even if you only have a few bucks, check out all of the 106 issues of my RPG Pundit Presents series. You know, any one of those costs anywhere between 99 cents and $4.99, and you know, for the price of a coffee, you'll get a supplement that will be useful for your game, right? And you've got 106 different topics to choose from there, ranging from adventures to monsters to magic items to setting material, random tables, design tables, subsystems, everything, right? So take a look at my stuff and, you know, keep buying my stuff. And then if you've bought all my stuff, support me on Patreon, I guess. Thank you very much. And I guess we'll talk soon. Currently smoking Lorenzetti Horn plus Argento Natural.